Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Gambit, presented by Going for Two Live. Shout out to Jeff Lambert, the founder of everything. Shout out to my guest tonight, who is Micah Peters. How you doing, Micah?
Doing well. Happy to be here. Really excited.
I almost said Parsons.
Yeah, very close in the names, but not quite. Different Micah P.
I didn't completely sack the show. I tackled the name head on. Speaking of names, I am Kyle Senra, as always, your host of the Dynasty Gambit. Brian and Gator J aren't here, neither my co-host. Hoping to have both back on our next episode, which I think will be July 13th. But of course, there's always great shows on the Going for Two Live network every night of the week. So happy to talk Dynasty here today. I already have a guest in too, the real Raposa. So let's freaking go, boys. I'll try not to swear too much on the network. But yes, appreciate all the interactions and all the comments. So I guess before we get started, Micah and also all the guests and all the viewers, just going to sponsor Underdog here real quick. So the Underdog Fantasy Fantasy Company, I should say. Sorry, let me get this proper right. Yes, they're sponsoring us. Now, for those who haven't joined Underdog yet, we do have a promo code, GF2, for anyone watching the video, like it says on the hat. You can also scan the QR code if you are watching the video, and that will double your deposit match upon entry, and they'll double it up to $100. So if you're joining Underdog for the first time, use our promo code GF2. If you put in $100, they will give you an extra $100 to use in your accounts. You can play best ball drafts. You can play pick'ems or props in different other sports. Baseball, I guess basketball, hockey's done now. No playoffs anymore, but that'll come back eventually. CFL, if they can ever get the stats right. That's another story for another time, though. And I mean, the NFL season isn't that far away, so we'll eventually get back into that. Do you play any best ball? Are you on Underdog?
Oh, Micah? Yeah. Draft season is in full effect. I am addicted to best ball drafts. I absolutely love them.
Okay, well, I think I'm just addicted to drafting, honestly. So give me any type of draft anywhere, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I love it. That's why I love it. It honestly helps me get a leg up when redraft leagues start drafting, here in the next month or so, as those get started up. Underdogs, it's the best place. And you're drafting against other people who are typically pretty interested in fantasy football. So you're able to test your drafting skills against other experts or other pretty competitive players. So it's a good place to be.
Yeah, and I think some people might mock draft, but this is sort of gives you the training of a mock draft, but with the potential chance to actually win something if you do properly too. So the ability to just in volume test out different strategies, like as if it was a mock draft environment, is great. And again, you can do that and win money on Underdog playing best ball. So there you go. I think so far I guess we should announce, Micah, this is your first live appearance on the Going for Two Live network. You are a contributor for the site, and you do some rankings as well for us. But welcome to your first live show.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. First live show ever, not just for Going for Two, but really excited to do this. Really happy to be here. Excited to talk football.
Well, again, we're glad we give you the opportunity here on the Dynasty Gambit. It's Scott Fishbowl season, so I purposely chose the Scott Fishbowl 9 shirt. The first year I was in it, knowing this was your first show. So it's the homage to say we all start somewhere, right? And I definitely did a lot better last year in the Scott Fishbowl than I did the video game year, that's for sure.
That's awesome.
Oh, we got also awesome bunch of different other people coming in. So Paul Peters, related to Jason brother. Peters, I'm guessing?
Yeah. We all are, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Love the alliteration, though. Paul Peters. Perfect pronunciation, Kyle. Good job.
Yeah.
Gator's in. All right. I'm in the chat at least. Yes, you are, Gator. Happy to have you in any form, whether it's on screen, talking to us, or here in the chat. Appreciate the support. Jamie, as always, the Cleveland connoisseur, the content connoisseur, always chiming in on all the Going for Two Live shows. Really appreciate Jamie's support. Oh, yes. And yeah, it's funny. Jamie already saw this. Yes, it's not a hallucination, Jamie, as was mentioned on Monday. Gator, yeah, I just moved, so this is my new place. So, and Jamie is congratulating you on your first live show. I remember
Thank
when
you,
Jamie
Jamie.
got on the network, so
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie.
we all start somewhere. And
Yeah.
Maggie Hernandez saying, "Let's go, Micah."
That's my sister.
Okay,
A lot
very
of family support here tonight.
awesome. Yeah, well, there we go. So we'll again, as a going for two family member, the content you create with us, just sorry, not your real family, but it's another form of family that we love to support and love to bring guests on from all across the network.
Yeah, definitely.
So again, as mentioned, you do participate in our dynasty rankings consensus. So if you go on to goingfor2.com and under the dynasty rankings, under the ranking section, we got a couple of rookie draft rankings up. Redraft rankings haven't been posted yet, but you can see the consensus dynasty ranking from I think about 7 or 8 of us. And Micah, you're on there. So was this like your first round of doing rankings as well this year?
Yeah, it was my first time doing them. New to me. I've done maybe 3 updates since I started. I think I did my first set at the end of May, and then I started a new job actually, so a little preoccupied with that. This past week started updating them again, kind of got them a little more in order based on what's been going on the past month. So
Yeah, we try and I also try and keep them updated. I think I did a little just quick update on a few players a couple weeks ago, but yeah, as the summer gets here and a bit more free time, I'll definitely do a bigger update. We're doing projections too at the Going for Two. Just a few of us together contributing to make projections this year. So I think once those come out too, that'll impact how my rankings are viewed. Even for Dynasty, there's still a lot of like single year players. I guess that was trying to transition nicely to like what is it like to rank and like what big philosophies do you bring in? And I guess the one example I gave last week and also maybe here to help you just kind of understand what I'm trying to get out of you is um, I've got kind of and Brian Ford called me out on this months ago, but the Cooper Cup tier, like I think I've got Cooper Cup at wide receiver 6 in Dynasty, which is
wow.
higher than consensus. Is higher than our consensus on the site.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got Diggs, Tyreek Hill, and Adams right behind him, ahead of another group of a bigger tier of younger players, DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, who some people have as high as wide receiver 3. And I want the true difference makers. And I guess with my philosophy with ranking, it goes with drafting. I would draft a Cooper Cup before I dipped into that second tier, thinking that other tier is so large of wide receivers. You can go maybe about 7 or 8 deep. I even consider like Debo Samuel kind of on that in that tier as well. But to be, I feel like if I could take one shot at one of those older guys, whether it's Cup or Stephon Diggs or Tyreek, I can come back with a younger wide receiver to balance the age out. Obviously, if I can get like a wide receiver one, like the wide receiver one who's only 23 years old, and Justin Jefferson, whatever age he is, like that's obvious. And I think those true difference makers that are super young come ahead of the guys like Cooper Cup. But I'd still, those 30-year-olds, or I guess Diggs isn't quite there yet, but like those 29, 30-year-olds, I think still have value.
Yeah. No, I am. I would say I'm pretty. I'd say I'm definitely on the other side of things when it comes to viewing wide receivers in particular. I think I have, where do I have Cup? I have Cup at 13, so a little bit lower than, definitely a little bit lower than 6. But on the contrary, I have guys like Devontae Smith at 9. I think I'm ahead of everyone on everyone of the GF2 rankers on. I have T. Higgins at 10, Chris Olave at 7. So things like that. And I guess my thinking in that and valuing those younger receivers, maybe who haven't shown that elite production, that a Cooper Cup, a Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams has shown. My general thought process is guys like that, if they are showing enough in their rookie year, and depending on landing spot and things like that, of course, their rookie year, their second year, if they're showing those, kind of characteristics that they are going to become those elite talents, then I'm more I'm seeking those guys out more because I'm going to have a wider, a wider range where they're going to be productive for me versus a Cooper Cup. He's 30 years old. He may have two, two elite seasons left. I mean, you can't, it's hard to predict those things, but you tend to see those receivers start to really drop off, around that age 33, 34 season. And so if I can build up those kind of sub elite guys, and maybe it comes at the cost of, a championship one season, maybe I'm not able to win right away. But if I'm able to have those guys in place when they do take that leap, if I've invested in them early, their value not only shoots up, but their production does along with that. And you can be holding really high valuable assets now while competing for championships. And that's kind of what I try to aim for. And it can be hard, especially depending on how your draft goes. If you don't get those guys in your draft, it's hard to trade for them. But I would say I try to really target those guys, and in Superflex, of course, quarterback. Those are really the two highest value positions to me over running back and tight end. Kind of how I do it.
And I would say that the dynasty consensus on those value would agree with you, and to a certain extent, the idea of what's the priority? Is it the points, or is it the potential trade value? It's probably a lot easier to move that younger tier of receiver than in a trade than it would be to move a Cooper Cup right now or a Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I don't know. I think the younger wide receivers may not be as far away as they may seem. Like I could see, for instance, Jalen Waddle. I think we have a pretty stark contrast in our rankings of him. I've got him
You're
at
the
4.
highest, and I'm the lowest in going for 2.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
Yeah, I think I had him at 6 a couple days ago, and I did a bit of a deep dive into like some of the advanced stats, looking at like targets per route run, yards per route run, just looking at some of the efficiency stats. And even with playing alongside Tyreek Hill, he's shown really good production, in the role that he's had. And so I think, someone like Tyreek Hill, who may, he's very reliant on speed, and he may fall off this season for all we know. Like it could happen that quickly for him, potentially not. His numbers are through the roof, and I still have him ranked pretty high, I would say. But when Tyreek, I'm assuming Waddle's still going to be there in Miami. And if Waddle takes over that number 1 spot, absorbs some of Tyreek's targets, I think he could absolutely explode and have the potential of a wide receiver 1 potentially. And so I just tend to value guys like that a little more, and just that potential. If they do reach that, you've now got these really high. I mean, you look at Justin Jefferson outside of quarterbacks, he's the most valued non-quarterback in Dynasty. And so having that upside, I think, is really key.
And your thinking is Waddle can get to that, has the potential anyway to maybe get to that Jamar Chase, Jefferson tier.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people are scared off by the presence of Tyreek being there and being in Miami. But I think in Dynasty, you do have to have a longer range mindset sometimes of these things. And like, maybe Waddle isn't, maybe Waddle doesn't take over the lead spot this year. Maybe he does next year. And if you invested in him now and he's not, being priced as a wide receiver 1 on a really high passing offense, you are kind of securing yourself more value down the line if that occurs. But of course, it's always a risk. And that's kind of what you have to factor in with like Cup, what you're getting. Diggs, what you're getting. Waddle, you do know what you're getting, but you are still, that value is still contingent on certain things happening in the future.
There's a hope that he can do more than what he's done so far, that we haven't seen the best of Waddle yet. Jamie's saying he's pretty sure he has Waddle 6 or 7. And honestly, if you look at our going for 2 consensus, his rank is 6. And of the 7 rankers that are published on our website, over half of them have him at 6. 4 of the 7 do have him at 6. You have him at 4. I've got him at 11. And actually, our guest 2 weeks ago, Matthew Russell, he has him at 9. So Chu and I are the only 2 to have him below wide receiver 6. So it seems like, and that does seem to fall in line with where the general community has Waddle as well.
Yeah, no, certainly. Um, yeah, I feel like those guys kind of, maybe even AJ Brown included. I'm a big AJ Brown guy, so I'm a little biased towards him, but um, 3 through, I don't know, maybe 8, like for my rankings anyways. I have, Waddle, um, CD Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Amara St. Brown, Chris Olave. All those guys you're kind of hoping on, hoping to see that jump, and they've shown those flashes. And I think it's important to get ahead of that in Dynasty. I think for my philosophy, anyways, and how valuable guys certainly are. I certainly put a heavy emphasis on youth, and that's just the way I kind of look at it. I'm not the guy typically going out for the seeking out the veterans in drafts and trades. But I'm sure I'm overcorrecting a little, or stepping a little, maybe overweighting the youth side of things a little bit. But,
Well, the truth is, if you look at the rankings, the top 8 in our consensus are actually the 8 you have. Now that I think
mhm.
the order is not exactly the same, but no one
Yeah.
else of the 7 has that exact same 8. Uh,
Mm,
I think Russell Chu almost has all that. He does
absolutely.
have Tyreek ahead of Waddle. He's like me in that
Hmm.
regard. Jeff
Yeah.
has DK Metcalf in the top 8, and that's his only one that's out of there. But
Mhm.
it does seem like those are the Brian Ford has T Higgins in his top 8. So almost everyone has that same top 8. At least a
Yeah.
good chunk of the people ranking, but with maybe one exception. I guess Josh Walker has the same 8 as you as well. So
Okay. Yeah.
to a certain extent, it does seem like we together, again, as a collective ongoing for two, but also as a community, are kind of valuing them there anyway. Looking at startup drafts, see a lot of those guys going in the second, third rounds of Superflex startup drafts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I guess important question on the chat: do you have Roshan Johnson as the RB1 now? Jamie wants to know.
I do not, but I have him as my RB. Let's see, 37. So
I'm
close.
That's probably a 34. So his consensus is 39, I think. Yeah. So
Yeah.
uh yeah, I think that's kind of the extreme end. Now, the consensus doesn't include Jamie, who obviously that would raise that consensus ranking up quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say Roshan Johnson's a type of running back, or the type of player really where that's someone I would take a chance on in Dynasty if the price was right, if they're not asking for too much, like in a trade, or in your rookie drafts, if you're getting him at a decent place, because Khalil Herbert is there, but I certainly don't think he's proven himself to be, to certainly be the lead. And I think the opportunity for Roshan Johnson is absolutely there if he can, kind of break out, and, if he sets himself apart from those other running backs, Deontay Foreman and Khalil Herbert, then he could, next year he could be jumping up in the 20s, the teens potentially, if he asserts himself as a lead back. So
Kind of like Jordan Howard did as a later round, a day 3 back that was still able to take over meaningful
yeah,
work for a couple years through his rookie contract. So, early second round pick is nothing if he hits on that.
yeah,
So
no, absolutely. And that's something I definitely target, I think, in running backs specifically. I'm certainly higher on wide receivers, like I said, than running backs. And so I find my teams end up being weaker at running back and a lot stronger at wide receiver. But usually if I don't have one of those like stud running backs, who can really dominate for me, if I'm trying to get guys in the later rounds of a startup, or if I just need someone to fill a role for me, I'm seeking out running backs who have that opportunity, where the backfield isn't as clear. It's not as clear who's going to be starting. And if the opportunity is there for them to take the role, I like to take chances on those guys, because when they do, their value really jumps up. So
and because of the ambiguity, they're usually a lot cheaper. And again, they'll fall to the
yeah.
second round of rookie drafts, or they can be
Hmm.
acquired via trade relatively
Yeah.
cheaply to other players.
Hmm.
Um, I guess so. Jamie says he agrees with your philosophy of staying away from the older players. He calls it
Yeah.
ageism. I guess he doesn't call it that. That's just generally what it's called. But yes, that a lot in fantasy circles. So not accusing you of being an ageist or anything, but would like to hear some of your philosophy. So that was 20 minutes of me rambling about mine. So
Yeah.
how did you fine. Like, so, how'd you answer bigger questions when making these rankings as a way to make it easier?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about it. Certainly valuing youth over a lot of other factors, even over production, oftentimes, depending on the situation, what's going on. Also looking at a player's draft capital, like what and this is more specific to the younger players. The guys on the rookie contracts or incoming rookies. I think how much a team invests into a player can be really telling of, I mean, maybe not necessarily how good that player is, but he may get more chances than, say an undrafted guy at, late day 3 pick. And just that opportunity to get more chances makes him more valuable because he has he gets more opportunities to eventually find his place and, assert himself as a, a starter, a usable player in fantasy. So that's something I consider. Something I found doing rankings for the first time when I was really struggling to place one player above another or below another, I would kind of stop and kind of take a step back and ask myself, would I trade player X for player Y, and that's always dependent on what your team is in that current situation. But like in a vacuum, would I trade this person for this person? And if the answer is no, then I'm probably going to keep him above, the person I was thinking about ranking above. I should probably use specific players to make it a little more clear. But yeah, just thinking about like, would I trade this person for, would I trade, trying to think. I'll say, for instance, like Breece Hall and Christian McCaffrey. I have Breece Hall ranked ahead. And so obviously Christian McCaffrey's been, the best running back in football when he's healthy, as long as he's been in the league, really. And I have his jersey, repping. Sad that he left my Panthers. But when I was looking at that, I'm thinking, if I had Breece Hall, would I really give him up for Christian McCaffrey? Or vice versa, would I give up Christian McCaffrey for Breece Hall? And then that kind of helps me think about it a little more specifically as to what's going on. And I think that for me, like my ranking should reflect, how I'm valuing players in trades, and in startup drafts as well. I think those should be consistent, but obviously they can't always be consistent. But where I can, kind of look at things very specifically and make those adjustments, I think that's been really helpful for me.
And I think that is a bit of a struggle because startup value and trade value are two different things. Like a player might go
Mm-hmm.
earlier to startup than what his trade value might indicate, and vice versa. So
Yeah.
once the draft's over, it really is just what does the league value those players at? To a certain
Yeah.
extent, they've already done that in the startup, but so trying to meld both is, I think, probably difficult. So kudos to you for being able to seemingly do it successfully. I mean, your rankings are out there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is all dependent on, you have to know your league. The people listening, like you have to know the people in your league, and you might, someone might be more valuable in your league simply because he plays for a certain team. You might have, I don't know, maybe Kenneth Walker is a lot more valuable in your league than others because you have a really big Seahawks fan, and so you might be able to get a bigger deal for Kenneth Walker because you're trading with, the Seahawks fan in your league, than if you were trading with someone else or in another league. So you definitely have to take that into account. And it does, I mean, it is, you have to factor in, like, what does your team look like? Like, if I'm in a win now situation, I'm probably not going to trade Cooper Kupp for, I have to look who's kind of around him in my rankings. Let's see.
Like a
I'm
Debo
probably not going to,
Samuel, right? Like you'd get an
yeah, or
age
like
discount.
maybe, yeah, I'll say actually Drake London because I have them back to back. I actually have London ranked one spot ahead. But if I'm in a win now situation, like I just won the championship, or or I'm definitely going to be competing for the championship, and I have Cooper Kupp, I'm probably not going to trade him for Drake London, even if in my rankings, I have London a spot ahead. It's it is contingent on the team that you have and the situation you're in.
I guess, yeah, you are one of the higher ones on London too. You and Josh Walker both have him as a top 12 wide receiver, and Josh is a
Nice.
Falcons fan, so like I
Okay.
guess the bias is there. But then you're not
Yeah.
you're the exact opposite of a Falcons fan, being a Panthers fan,
Yeah.
so it's reverse bias. So I guess it fits.
Yeah. No. That kind of honestly, his ranking kind of goes back to what I was saying about draft capital. I don't know, I keep doing that draft capital. he was taken, I think, 8th overall. And
Yeah.
I think if the Falcons are investing that much in him, they really believe in him, and he's going to get lots of opportunity. I think he showed enough in his rookie year that I think he will be successful. Maybe not this year, which again is why I wouldn't trade Cooper Kupp for him. Not confident in Desmond Ritter and how, not sure he can support both London and Kyle Pitts, for instance. They ran the ball a lot last year. They were one of the highest. I think they were one of the highest teams in rush attempts.
I think they've been they were one of the highest teams in the last 12 years. I think they're top 5 in terms of the run rate. So
yeah,
listening, I think JJ Zachary's go back to 2011, and the Bears and the Falcons last year are among the most run heavy teams we've seen since 2011.
Yeah, and they just drafted Bijan Robinson, so that kind of tells you where they're at right now. But
thinking of high draft capital again, right? Like the whole argument. Yeah. If they paid these, if they drafted them early, they're gonna give them the work.
Use them. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just with London. I'm kind of just counting on a QB upgrade. Unless Ritter is the answer and he does turn out to be really good, they're probably going to be bad again. And maybe Bijan gets them a few more wins, but probably not going to be very good again. And hopefully they can acquire a good quarterback in the next couple drafts, or trade for him potentially, just depending on how their situation works out. But I'm counting on him getting an upgrade at some point and sort of being able to separate himself that way when the passing volume does eventually go up. I don't think it's going to stay historically low forever throughout his whole career. So
you'd have to imagine if they're drafting at number 8 again for 3 years in a row, they're going to eventually take a not skilled position player. They're going to take a quarterback eventually, or use that pick.
Yeah, you would think. I felt that struggle being a Panthers fan the past over a decade. Well, I'd say the past 5 or 6 years with Cam declining, and then we've kind of run through the gauntlet of once first round pick quarterbacks who are now who flamed out, and tried that for a long time. I was sad we traded DJ Moore. I was so happy we were trading up to get Bryce Young. We finally answered the hardest position to answer.
So a bit of a question. Well, I have a bit of a question to come off of this, but John Peters saying Isaiah likely or bust. Now, I don't know if that's a question or a statement. I would choose likely rather than busting. And but I do have a question on this. So this week I made a trade for Isaiah likely. I gave up. So maybe the scoring settings of this league it's interesting. It's a multiverse league, and the idea of the multiverse, different universes, is that it's different scoring settings. So we keep our same team every year, but the settings around it change. We went from last year a 2 QB, 2 tight end league with a tight end premium to this year start 1 at each position, 2 running backs, 5 wide receivers, just PPR and receiving bonuses. So you get a bonus.
Type of league.
Yeah, it's wild swings. But anyway, as part of the 2 tight end format last year, I had Kittle, Freiermuth, and Everett as kind of a 3 type of rotation that I could kind of do, cover bye weeks if someone got hurt. But I felt like I could sell Freiermuth away for some value. So I gave up Freiermuth in a 4th to get Isaiah likely and a 2nd. So what would you think about that? And then, of course, everyone in the chat chime in as well, just to see, because I know there's certainly one reaction in the league that kind of opened my eyes a little bit, like, oops. But
yeah.
What do you think?
Honestly, I like it. I'm not super high on Freiermuth. I think both of us have him much lower than consensus compared to the rest of the rankers on the site. I'm not a big believer in Kenny Pickett. They just drafted Darnell Washington, which kind of, maybe they're looking to do some 2 tight end sets, or maybe Washington's a longer term project. But that does kind of scare me off Freiermuth. I used to kind of be a fan of him, but he wasn't very good last year. He was okay. And I think, honestly, Isaiah likely, not in a great situation now, obviously, but you're getting pretty high upside if, say Mark Andrews goes down, if he gets hurt, or if, likely moves to another team. Very good athlete. And I try to target that at tight end. I want those, athletic tight ends that, can maybe get downfield a little more, open up the field a little bit. And I'm just a fan of likely talent wise, so I do like that. And you're getting a second round pick as well. And honestly, I'd consider. I can't remember if you said it was tight end premium or not.
Not
But
this
if,
year.
in a non tight end premium, I'd definitely consider Fryermuth for a second. I don't remember which year you said it was, but I think that's about in line with where I'd value him at this point. And so I think if you're getting likely on top of that, I don't care much about the fourth round pick. I don't think they really turn into much ever unless you get really lucky. But so I think at that point you're giving up Fryermuth for a potential high upside tight end and a solid pick for the future. I think you won that trade.
So it's funny because one of the people reacted in the group and they tagged the other person's name and said Savage, almost to say like, man, you just stole Fryermuth from that guy. But I know, as you referenced, like you and I have him at tight end 12, each of us, and
Mhm.
whereas the consensus ranking, he is tight end 7, and almost everyone else has him either at 7 or 12. Actually, that's or sorry, 7 or 8. Everyone else among the going for two rankers. So
Mhm.
um, I think I'm less concerned with Washington. I'm more concerned with Pickett. To me,
Yeah.
I went and I looked back. So okay, I was using cues from JJ Zachary's, and he keeps going back to 2011 all the time. So I went back to 2011. Cam Newton's rookie season, and I looked at every quarterback who started at least half a season in their rookie years,
Mhm.
9 or more games, and I
Mhm.
want to know what their touchdown rates were. I was doing this as part of
Yeah.
my touchdown projections, which I've already done.
Mhm.
And since 2011, Kenny Pickett is the worst touchdown rate of any quarterback, of any first round quarterback in their rookie season at
Jeez.
1.8%.
Wow.
Just slightly worse than what Trevor Lawrence did with Urban Meyer at 2%. So
Jeez. It's
now Trevor,
not for lack of talent. In terms of like receiving weapons,
oh, for
not
sure.
in terms
Yeah.
of Kenny Pickett.
No, that's true. And so anyway, uh, Lawrence rebounded, went from 2% to 4.3%. So I think Pickett doubling that percentage and getting to like a 3.6, that seems fair.
Mhm.
Because really the average, and this kind of relates to your quarterback in Bryce Young. I guess I could ask you what you think of this projection real quick, but I kind of looked at what that average was since 2011, and the average
Mhm.
for the quarterbacks and their touchdown rate is 4%. The median is 3.6%. So I thought anywhere in that range, uh,
Okay.
I would expect maybe. So, like, how do I project the rookies? Really, the three first round rookies from this year. How do I project Pickett because he didn't start a full rookie season? So I think he
Mhm.
started 12 games. So effectively, you could still kind of consider him a rookie. And then I'm a Packers fan. I also took my team's quarterback. You can see the helmet in the back there.
Yeah.
But Jordan Love, he has one career start. So how do you project that? So I think for all
Mhm.
five of those quarterbacks, just looking at what the averages were,
Yeah.
I have all five of them between 3.6 and 4%. And I guess what I'm giving preference to is, you know, not just the first, because all of them are first round picks, but Love and Pickett are picked in the 20s, whereas Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, they're all top 5 NFL picks. So
Mhm.
I gave them the higher touchdown rates. I put them to
Mhm.
4%. So for instance, at 4%, I have the Panthers throwing it 559 times. So Bryce Young at 4% would throw 22 touchdown passes. Now,
Okay.
as a Panthers fan, what do you is that a do you think that would be a success? 22 touchdown passes, and then like as a fantasy analyst, what do you think as well?
Yeah, I think as a fan, I mean, I'd be happy with it. I think both as a fan and a fantasy analyst, I'm keeping my expectations low on most rookie quarterbacks. Um, the rookie quarterbacks I tend to be a little higher on in terms of like immediate production are the ones who can use their legs well. I don't think Bryce. I mean, Bryce Young showed that he can when he needs to, but it's not, a primary, uh, not a primary factor of his game. But I think 22 is right in line, probably there, give or take, 3 or 4, probably. Hopefully give, but um, I think you tend to see, you saw it, like you said, with Trevor Lawrence, kind of really struggled, not maybe not really struggled, but wasn't great his rookie year. And then you see the second year, he really took that leap and kind of showed, why he was drafted so high. And so I think you're right about that and kind of projecting them right around that median, that average. And it's so hard with rookie quarterbacks to know how they're going to get in and process everything. Everything's quicker. Um, it's just that it is a huge leap, and it's the hardest position to play in football probably. And it takes time to adjust. It really does. And I think the main thing you want to look for in rookies of all positions is, even if they start slow, how are they finishing their season? Are they earning, for wide receiver, are they earning more targets? For Bryce Young, is he, is his completion percentage going up? Is his, are the touchdowns he's throwing per game going up at least somewhat? And so you want to see maybe some progression throughout the season, but I think you should keep your expectations pretty low for most rookie quarterbacks. I'd say Anthony Richardson may be a little bit of an exception just because of the freak athlete that he is and just how game breaking that could potentially be. I think there's potential for him to do really well immediately, but again, he wasn't the best passer in college, so that aspect of his game really might take some time to kind of hone in and become, productive in fantasy.
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to see kind of through their rookie seasons how these guys do. But just again, as a baseline, I felt that 4% average was for Young, for Stroud, and for Richardson. I just had Richardson a lot fewer attempts, so I think he only has 16 passing touchdowns as a rookie in my projections.
Okay, yeah,
because
that sounds about right. I think. Yeah, I think he'll probably rush for a few as well, which might, in terms of like fantasy points, might bring him back up, higher, maybe above the other rookie quarterbacks. Yeah, I think projecting him for a lower passing total, especially in the Colts offense and the weapons that they have, I think that's pretty fair. That makes a lot of sense.
And yeah, so I think like to me, I almost expected to kind of be like what we were just saying about the Atlanta Falcons, a super run heavy team. I kind of expect that from the Colts this year. But all to say, like for Jordan Love, it was almost easy to give him 3.6% because that's actually his career. So he's only started one game, but he's played as like he's come in 9 other games. So got kind of we've got a sample size, and his career average is 3.6% of his touchdown rate. So it just felt like, okay, well, go with his career average. That's what I'm doing for a lot of these other quarterbacks. So that was easy. And then for Pickett, it was simply doubling it, which again, Lawrence more than doubled it. So I don't think Pickett's as good as Lawrence. I don't expect that type of leap, but I do expect somewhat of a leap. So, but that still to me affects it with Freiermuth. I think I only have him projected for 4 touchdowns, which I think is lower than what he's done in other seasons. I think rookie season with Ben, I think he had 7. So that's kind of why I wanted to get out on him. Give me any type of pick. And the one thing about that league is I'll say I've traded for Justin Jefferson and I gave up my first to do it. So without a first, I now have 2 seconds. I also feel like because that league shifts so drastically with the settings, the rookie picks are kind of your way to either draft into the formats or trade for players in that formats. It's sort of something that kind of the picks won't diminish in value based on the settings. Like that was something that's consistent. So as much as like, okay, it's Justin Jefferson. Like I'll give up a first for that. I lost in the finals last year, so I view myself as a competitive team. That maybe that puts me over the edge. So I'll be willing to give my first, but knowing that that's a first that I can't use later on to trade. So I felt like this was the best way to get some equity back. I'm still running George Kittle. I still view him pretty highly. If you look at our tight end rankings, I guess you are the lowest on him at 7. But all to say, like it's between, I think all of us have him between 4 and 7. So kind of a slimmer range. You've Dalton Kincaid ahead of him. Interesting. You're the highest on Kincaid, but I think all to say, like that's the range review of the difference makers, and I don't think any of us have Kittle outside that difference maker range. So I don't mind giving up my backup tight end if we're gonna go through Kittle anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. My ranking with Kittle is not about his immediate production. I think he'll probably be a top 3, top 4 tight end this year. I mean, assuming he stays healthy. It's just more of that kind of long-term projection of like, maybe eventually he does sell off, but tight ends have been a little more durable and, into their older years, and Travis Kelce's kind of shown that. But the Kincaid thing is really, he got, it kind of goes back to the youth, the draft capital, but also the landing spot. He got the first round draft capital, but he also ended up, in Buffalo. And in a Buffalo offense that, there is a bit of ambiguity behind Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis has been touted as the next up and coming great wide receiver since, the end of the end of the season before last, and he didn't show it last year. He's still young. He very well could, but I think there's a lot of opportunity there for Kincaid to, get in. They might. I know I've heard talks of them using him as a slot receiver this year, a big slot receiver, maybe using him and Dawson Knox together. Rookie tight ends typically don't do well, but I think that long-term upside of being in Buffalo, being with Josh Allen, and I'm a fan of Kincaid. I think he could potentially be really good no matter where he is. So it's kind of my thought process there.
Well, and to the point of Kittle, the only tight end you have ahead of him that's older is Kelsey. So it's a lot of that younger tier that you're putting ahead of Kittle. Again, other than Kelsey, but he's such a freak difference maker that like even with you as high as your philosophy is on youth, you still have him at tight end 3. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Kelsey is just, and compared to every other tight end, he's just that much better. He's been that much better, and so it's hard to drop him down too low, even if he's aging. Some people have been predicting him to kind of fall off due to age. The last probably 2 seasons, and he was as good as he's ever been last season. And when you're with Mahomes, they haven't made any big wide receiver additions that I would think threaten Kelsey's target share. And so I think I kind of view Kelsey the way I do McCaffrey. In terms of running backs, I view the age range a little differently because they do tend to, tail off towards their late 20s. But even if McCaffrey's getting closer to that age, he's that much of a difference maker that you kind of have to have him up. You have to have him up in that kind of top 5 range. It's hard not to. So.
Well, yeah, everyone at Going for Two has him. Actually, a few of us have him at tight end 1, but another 3 of you guys have him at tight end 3. Jeff has him at tight end 4. I'll have to talk to the big boss about that.
That was surprising. Yeah, Hawkinson tight end 1.
Yeah, and I think that's the big one there is Jeff's having Hawks at 1. I think at points in the offseason, I had Hawkinson as high as 2. So
I can see it.
Yeah, I think, again, everyone has him. Josh is the lowest on him at 5, but everyone's got him in the top 5. It seems like at the top of tight ends, there really is no big difference made. Like the real big gap, I suppose, we start with Freiermuth, right? Like that's the kind of the first thing that stands out is the consensus is Freiermuth at 7, but you and I both have him at 12, and that's kind of where we start to see that those big swings start to happen.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised to see. I was the only one with Mark Andrews as the tight end 1 in Dynasty. That surprised me. I mean, everyone has him pretty much 2, and then Jeff has him 3. But
yeah, it seems like it was a couple of us have Kelsey still at 1, a few people have Pitts, but yeah, you're right. Yeah. That is strange because that is, even though you're the only one who has him at 1, our consensus ranking is
at 1 because everyone's got him. Basically, everyone has him at 2. So yeah.
So it's
I just think
funny. That is funny how that works. That's fun with consensus rankings. So again, go check them out on goingfor2.com. You can see all sorts of fun. We try to give advice, and this is meant to be serious. But yes, apparently Jamie is shopping for groceries, but also shopping for subscribers and listening to us at the grocery store. So we gotta do our best here, Micah, to recruit.
Gotcha. I lagged a little bit. I didn't hear everything you said, but I saw the part about the grocery store and recruiting members.
All right. Well, yeah. We will try not to lag too far behind, and we'll try and get more people to subscribe to the Going for Two Live network. Check us out on YouTube, Going for Two Live. We're also on Twitch and Facebook. In terms of if you want to comment and interact with us, join us on either of those platforms. Zach Linton saying good evening, everyone, but also mentioning this comment about Kelsey, that Travis Kelsey is the focal point of the offense, and everyone else that's like they're the ones competing for targets, not Kelsey. He's going to get his share no matter who else is there. I mean, even when Tyreek Hill was there, Kelsey was constantly getting triple-digit targets.
Yeah. I mean, he's that much of a difference maker that it's impossible to have him outside of your, top 4. I would say. I would say top 3 ranking, but.
Yeah, for sure. Again, we thank Jeff for providing us this live network and the website and allowing us to do this. But check your ranking, Jeff. I think honestly, Foss has gone the longest without updating. So Foss, if you're listening, show us in the comments. You probably not, but yeah, get on that, Ryan. Dan, so the B League says my co-hosts on Monday nights during the season saying new backdrop for Senra and clapping, celebrating, cheering. Better internet here too. I think what I can see on YouTube, it seems like the quality is a little bit better than what I was normally outputting at the old place. So celebrations all around. Everyone, it's great. We've really done the turnaround of all the positions, except strangely enough, the one that you and I view as the most important, certainly in Superflex, and that's
Yeah.
quarterback. So,
Yeah.
were there any comments that you wanted to make about your or our consensus rankings at quarterback?
Yeah. I think we're all pretty. I'd say we're the most in agreement of this position through probably the first 8. I think we may all have the same top 8 here.
Yep.
And
Just with different
it's
orders, and from what I've seen in startup drafts, it seems like that is a clear top 8. So that's
yeah,
not just us; that's the community at
yeah,
whole. We've kind of identified these 8 quarterbacks as
yeah.
the ones we
And
want
even
to
the
take in the first round, start our franchises with.
yeah, no, definitely. So for me, I kind of singled out Trevor Lawrence. I was the highest among us on him, and I've always felt this was maybe a little controversial to have him above Justin Herbert, which I think a lot of people would disagree with. Um, I really like Trevor Lawrence. I think he showed last year just how good of a quarterback he is. Even beyond that, the offense that he's in and how much trust they're putting in him, like the amount of times last year, I feel like where at least 2, maybe even sometimes 3 of his receivers would have 10 plus targets, with like Ingram, Kirk, and Zay Jones. And, just how much they're passing the ball, even targeting ETN and, the success he had. I'm, huge believer in Trevor Lawrence, and I think he's going to be great for the next decade, probably. I think he is a truly elite quarterback. I don't think everyone's kind of gotten there with him yet. I think especially the rookie year struggles, maybe cast a little bit of doubt on that. But I think he showed last year that those were just what they were, rookie year struggles, and he worked through them, and the team has put their trust in him. I mean, he had to deal with Urban Meyer as well, which certainly did not help. But when I say he's above Justin Herbert, it's not like a tier between them. I think they're very much, in the same tier. And I can easily see the argument for Herbert being above Trevor Lawrence, even Lamar Jackson. I can see it. Any of these top 8 guys, I'd say outside the top 3, maybe, I don't know, 5 through 8 for our consensus rankings. I would say it's kind of, you could go any way with those rankings that you wanted to. And,
And the truth is, if looking at our rankings, it does seem like we've created a tier of the top 3. All 7 of us have the same top 3:
yeah.
Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Foss actually has Allen at QB1. Yeah, get on those get on those updates, Foss. No, it's almost unanimous. It's funny. I don't think there's any position where we're unanimous at number 1. And part of that's my fault because I have Jonathan Taylor at RB1. I'm the only holdout on Bijan still, and that's maybe my stubbornness.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like there's a mini tier after the top 3, and then again, I guess 4 through 8 seems like another almost giant tier. Maybe you separate that tier
Yeah.
into at spots as well.
Yeah, I think I kind of have it like the top 3, and then for me, I think I have Burrow next, maybe in like his own tier, sort of somewhere in between, and then probably 5 through 8 is kind of how I viewed it. I think Burrow is, as elite as those top 3 guys. I don't think he's quite shown the full upside that those 3 guys have, but I think he certainly could. I mean, he obviously has the weapons to do it. He's probably going to have Jamar Chase with him for the majority of his career, and so that's always very helpful. But like, you cannot go wrong with any of these top 8 quarterbacks. They're all so elite. I think Justin Fields probably comes in with the most question marks, just because of how rough the passing game was with them last year. I benefited tremendously from a trade last year where I think it was I'm gonna say it was week 5. Justin Fields at that point hadn't completed more than like 8, or it was like he hadn't thrown more than like 10 passes a game or something like that. I can't remember the stat. It was something crazy like that. He hadn't thrown the ball at all. And I had Trey Lance. And when Lance went down injured, we needed a quarterback. And I found one of our tanking teams who had Justin Fields, and Fields had been so awful that he was willing to take an injured Lance over Justin Fields. And then like 2 weeks later, Fields just slowly and I guess kind of quickly kind of shot off and
started putting up those 100-yard rushing games and really showing the ceiling on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. And that was huge. And I think my hot take for this season is that Fields could be the QB1 overall if he takes that step forward and like kind of like Jalen Hurts did. I mean, Hurts wasn't I don't think as bad of a passer as Fields been, but they've invested in offensive line. They've invested in the receiving core, trading for DJ Moore. I think the pieces are there for him to potentially achieve that upside if he takes that leap forward as a passer.
Yeah, I think just having DJ Moore shows that they want to throw the ball more, and
Yeah.
they need someone to throw the ball to, and it's whatever DJ Moore's typical target share. Just add that to the Bears' total pass attempts. It's like just give him that, and then all these extra targets will just go to him, and then everyone else can still operate like they did last
year. Yeah, I think I don't know how you feel about Chase Claypool, but I think they realized Claypool is not the answer that they were hoping for.
It does seem like the one area where they could really use help is a red zone passing offense, and that is kind of the area where Claypool, in theory, could help them out. So I think that the NFL applications are good. I think Darnell Mooney showed when Allen Robinson was there, he can operate really well as a number 2 wide receiver, but he can't handle the extra coverage, like blanket coverage. He can't find ways to escape a double team or even just take on teams' top corners. But
he showed success when Allen Robinson was there, kind of taking that coverage. And then, like you said, when he was the top guy, it was a big struggle for him. But, DJ Moore's shown that he can fill that role and be successful, even with poor quarterback play. He's always been productive. Obviously, I'm a little biased as a Panthers fan. Love DJ Moore. But, I think you're right. I think it's really right. I think the addition of DJ Moore probably helped Darnell Mooney ultimately, just in being able to earn better targets and potentially more.
It's funny because to me the trade for DJ Moore doesn't really change much for DJ Moore. Like we still have questions about his quarterback's passing efficiency no matter where he's been. Which I guess it's mostly been Carolina. Sorry, but who he's had as his quarterback. This doesn't really change, but this should help Fields improve. Like we said, it helps Mooney. Like this DJ Moore trade has much more positive implications for other Chicago Bears than it does for DJ Moore. I don't think this really hurts him though. Like he's always going to be what he's been, a high end wide receiver 2, and that's kind of what we should expect from him. I guess we've circled back to wide receiver rankings again. You're right. Everyone wants to talk about receivers all the time.
That's probably my fault, but I love wide receivers. But I think if Fields does take that leap as a passer, maybe. I mean, if he takes a leap as a passer, he might be the best quarterback that DJ Moore's played with, but because they've been that bad. Even Cam Newton was not a good passer by the time DJ Moore got there.
Yeah, he never got prime Cam Newton. He got after the shoulder injuries, and Newton at that point trying to change his throwing mechanics and never really the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm curious to get your take on Anthony Richardson, kind of how you're viewing him in dynasty drafts, and because I think he's a bit of a controversial, player, just in terms of like how high people are willing to take him and how low some people are willing to let him fall because they don't believe. I'm curious to hear how you view him.
Well, I am the only one who has him ranked outside the top 12 quarterbacks. I've got him at QB 15. So I think there is a lot of risk, and I think there's after that top 8, there's tons of risk starting at QB 9 all the way down through. I suppose I'd say QB 15, and I've got Bryce Young and CJ Stroud just ahead of Richardson. I guess I'm the highest on Tua Tagovailoa at QB 11.
I'm not far behind you.
No, and I think he showed enough upside. Yeah, you've got him at 12. I think we're the only ones that have him in the top 12. But I think he showed enough upside last year that I think the risks with Young, Stroud, and Richardson, we have no idea what they're going to do in the NFL. We've already seen Tua kind of cross that threshold. So if I'm, starting my franchise off in a dynasty startup, I don't really want to start with the rookie quarterbacks. And frankly, like where Tua is going, he's an awesome like QB2. Like you take a quarterback in the first round and without even trading, because I've done that in the startup this year where I traded my second, third, and fourth round pick, and this is a classic Kyle move to get that extra first. I went Lawrence and Fields, but where the pick that ended up being my second round pick, Tua ended up falling. I could have, without trading, I could have just gone Fields and Lawrence.
Yeah.
No, I did get a couple later startup picks, which I think
Mhm.
is always that right. Like if I'm giving up 2, 3, and 4, I want more than just the first round pick. I want the first. I want 2 picks in the starter range. So if it's start 11, at least 11th rounders. I think I got an 8 and a 9 in a 14 teamer. But yes, so like that 2 is a great case for because like sometimes he's
Sure.
falling further than the second round, sometimes falling into the third round. So Tua to me is a great case for just if you want to wait a quarterback and still get some elite upside, he's there. So like I'd rather
Yeah.
bank on him than any of the rookies. Kyler Murray, I think that with the fear there is how much he's going to play. Like I've still got him at 12 ahead of those rookies,
Mhm.
and then I'm I've always kind of been higher on consensus than Dak. I guess you are the low one on Dak because almost everyone else has him in the top 12 except you at QB 16. So
Yeah. I
are you saying
I
Dak
think I made that.
upside is no longer there?
Yeah. I'm gonna say that's a temporary ranking. I'm so torn on what to do with Dak. Just because I don't think I mean, they didn't add much to the offense this year. Yeah, I mean, they added Brandon Cooks, so that he should be helpful, but he doesn't run the ball a lot anymore. Um, I was shocked, honestly, when I was looking at my rankings and I was looking at him versus Daniel Jones, and you know, since Daniel Jones has come into the league, I've not been a believer. But he just got the extension. He started rushing more, and that's something I value a lot in quarterbacks is the rushing upside. I think that is a big part of of fantasy production. And when I kind of looked at them, I was surprised to see, Jones had arguably a better year than Dak last year. And I don't have the stats in front of me right now to say specifically, but he's younger. He just got the extension. He's kind of at this point showing more rushing upside than Dak is, and um, and I just think that's at least for right now. That's kind of my justification for the ranking. But I could buy back in on Dak and move him up quite a few spots. Um, you know, I don't think he's bad by any means. But it's like it's also hard for me. I was kind of thinking through that, like who would I trade for? If I had Dak, um, would I trade him for Bryce Young, CJ Stroud? And when I asked myself this question, I was like, yeah, I think I would. And so when I thought about that, I was like, okay, maybe I should drop him back a couple spots. But that's really how I'm feeling about him. But I think Dak might come back next year and be great, and I'll have to certainly adjust my rankings on him. But he's not old by any means, and he's got plenty of his career left to be an elite quarterback. And um, I think the upside's still there with Dak. It's just right now with the way last season went for him a little bit. I know injuries were there. That's kind of why I dropped him down a little bit.
So difficult players, and I guess that is a good transition topic. You're a natural at this because I was going to ask you about, and this could we've kind of gone through all positions, so we can kind of
Yeah.
circle back on any if you need. But who were some difficult players for you to rank specifically throughout all 4 positions, if you want?
Yeah, I think let me kind of look back through them here. Someone I was going back and forth with a lot was Austin Eckler. Um, I was looking through rankings 2 nights ago, and I had him actually at RB 11. And the more I thought about that, I was like, he is an elite running back. And I think my reasoning for that initially really low ranking was he got, he got a contract extension, but it was for what, 1 year. And, who knows beyond that? I mean, we saw what happened to Melvin Gordon, and Eckler just kind of came in and replaced him. And so I think I'm a little scared of that drop off. Like you see Dalvin Cook now, he's looking for a team, he's looking for to get paid, and he's not really finding that money there. And I think Eckler's been better than Cook certainly the past couple of years. But that was one where I had him really low, and I had to realize, no, wait, he's still an elite running back. He's still going to be really good this year, sort of like that McCaffrey. When we were talking about McCaffrey, kind of same way. So I moved him up to 9, and maybe he should go higher, but it was hard to put him above like a Josh Jacobs. He's a little bit younger. I think younger. Maybe they're the same age, but they're kind of
I
there in the
think Jacobs
same
is younger.
field. But
To your point, maybe
yeah,
2 years.
also I don't have the ages right in front of me, but and like an ETN, I'm kind of valuing the age over Eckler at that point. Like I'm a believer in ETN. I'm not as scared off by Tank Bigsby as I know some people are, with ETN, but I know he's kind of a controversial guy. Just looking at our ranks, he's kind of all over the place. Sorry, I need to switch on my AirPods. One of those about to die.
Yeah. So anyway, Eckler is 28. Josh Jacobs. I'm going to look it up just to. Jacobs actually 25, so a 3-year difference.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I forgot Jacobs got drafted, like 21 or something like that.
Yeah, he was
really
very young.
So
I think there's only 2-year draft difference, but still age difference.
Yeah.
Now, I guess that it's funny that you raised Eckler to 9, and that still makes you the lowest on anyone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
imagine
really
how much lower it was, but kind of
Yeah.
falling in line to maybe what a realistic ranking is because of the output he's going to put for fantasy. I mean, he was the RB1 last year. After I think he was the RB2 the previous year. So with that offense, can they produce enough touchdowns for it to happen again? Because that's the big thing is he catches a lot of passes, and in the last 2 years he's scored a ton of touchdowns. So if you can do those things, you're probably going to have a good chance to be the RB1.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I had him above Tony Pollard and Ramondre before I moved him up, and I think I felt comfortable moving them above those two guys because I think there's still maybe not quite a bit, but there's still a decent bit of uncertainty with them and what their roles might be. I mean, it looks like Pollard's going to be it looks like he's going to be the lead back, but beyond this year, I don't know. And do I think he's going to be better than Austin Eckler this year? I wouldn't, based on like my best ball drafts, I certainly wouldn't take Pollard over Austin Eckler for this year. And so I was comfortable moving him above Pollard and Stevenson. And Ramondre is just like, he may get the full workload, but if he doesn't, then, drafting him as a top 10 RB, it's going to hurt if he's not getting that full workload. And so I think there's a little more uncertainty there. And so I was comfortable moving him up there, but then like Josh Jacobs, I think is a little more set in his role for sure. He showed it last year, just how good he can be in his role. And so that's kind of how I fell where I was on Eckler. But yeah.
I guess the one thing I'll say with Jacobs, I am a little bit concerned with just how many touches he had last year. The guys who get 350 touches, 10, some of them do, but a lot of them don't produce the same way the following year. So I'm just that little bit of concern that Jacobs saw like by far the most carries he'd ever seen in his career. And I mean, the passing game work has kind of been the same the last two coaching staffs. Not so much John Gruden, but Rich Bisaccia and that coaching staff, they threw him the ball a lot. So like his passing game didn't really expand much. In fact, he actually had more receiving receptions, one more, 54 to 53, but the previous year in 2021. He still doesn't have a receiving touchdown in his career. That is strange to me.
I did not know that.
Yeah, for a guy that just caught over 100 passes over the last 2 seasons, 0 receiving touchdown. But so efficient on the ground.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the Raiders offense a little bit. I mean, outside of Devontae Adams, it's been a bit of a struggle the past couple years.
Well, that's true. And well, maybe that's a Derek Carr thing. I guess we'll find out with Garoppolo. He might not be any better. So Eckler, a difficult running back to rank. How about at other positions? Any other players that stand out to you as being really difficult for your rankings? Might have lost Micah there for a sec, but I guess I could go on to say one of the toughest players for me to rank. I think I referenced it earlier. Jeff has him at wide receiver 8 is DK Metcalf, and where does he fall into that tier? You could also argue his teammate as well, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Not like how high do you put the rookie? And I think those are to me 2 receivers that I still have trouble knowing exactly where to put them. I think I know what tier Metcalf I believe belongs in, alongside Jalen Waddle, alongside Devontae Smith, T Higgins. Although I kind of like Higgins the least out of that group, but like where do I put Metcalf and Smith? Like I feel like I've struggled with those 2 like back and forth in the rankings, and Olave. Like what's the order of those 3? I feel like I've had every different iteration I could of those 3. But how have the Seahawks receivers been for you?
Yeah, they've sorry about that. I lagged when you asked me that question. I couldn't even load up my rankings for a second. It was very weird. Got them up now. Yeah, I'm a lot lower on Metcalf than I'm not sure if you mentioned this while flagging, but a lot lower than Metcalf on than consensus. I've got him at 17, and for me, I'm a big believer in him to the point where I think maybe not this season, but maybe even by next season, he may take over that wide receiver one role over DK Metcalf in Seattle. And that's kind of how I'm viewing it. I've got JSN at 15, Metcalf at 17. I think Metcalf's still going to be good. I think he's still going to be very productive. I'm not as big of a believer in the talent of Metcalf, just personally. He's obviously a supreme athlete, incredible athlete. But I do think JSN, I mean, he outperformed when the year before last at Ohio State, he outplayed Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave when they were all playing. And then last year he got injured, so I think that kind of dulled the hype on him a little bit. But I think it's important to kind of go back to that and realize, like, if he's outplaying these guys, and you see where we're taking, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave after their rookie years, I think Jason has that upside, maybe even above that potentially. And that's kind of made me less excited about DK Metcalf. But if they get the passing volume, I mean, they could both be truly elite. I think this season, JSN may be the wide receiver 3, still behind Lockett. I think Lockett's still extremely talented. I think he's still going to be very productive this year. Obviously, for Dynasty, he's not, ranking up as high as Metcalf or JSN, just due to age and things like that. But I think maybe Lockett moves on after this year potentially. We see JSN really step into that, that role of, potentially number one wide receiver. And so that was kind of my thought process with that. But I understand, having Metcalf higher. I get it. He's been the lead receiver there the past couple of years. Kind of been 1A, 1B with Lockett, but he's been there. He's shown he's a great wide receiver. But I love to hear from you. I see you're a little bit higher on him than JSN. I'd love to hear, why you feel that way.
Well, I do think he's had it. I get, like you were saying, with talent. I think it's the route running, right? Like that's the one
Yeah.
thing where Jax with the Jibba could truly separate himself and
Yeah.
be the better receiver. Is he the better route runner?
Mhm.
Metcalf's been able, gets a ton of red zone targets, is able to, catch enough of that and produce enough touchdowns that he aids that ceiling. Big monster yards producer as well. And, Geno Smith is a good enough quarterback that I think I right now still have him right on the cusp, but of the wide receiver 1 range at wide receiver 12.
Mhm.
Now I will say, like, you have him at 17, Foss has him at 7, so a 10-spot difference for the top 20 receivers. That is one of the largest we've seen. I think Cooper Cup as well. Again,
Yeah.
I've got him at wide receiver 6. That might be exaggerated a little, but he was the wide receiver 1 in fantasy points per game last year. So I think we're
Yeah.
still fine with Cooper Cup personally. But I guess JSN, you're not technically the highest. It's funny how Foss is the highest on Metcalf. He's also the highest on JSN at wide receiver 14. But I found it interesting. You're
I
actually
see. Yeah.
tied for the highest on Lockett at wide receiver 43. Foss is also
Interesting.
as well. So Foss just loves all the Seahawks
He
receivers.
loves. He's maybe. Hopefully, Geno's pretty high in his quarterback rankings. But maybe he's. I don't know what. I mean, he's
Or
a
was he
big
banking
believer in
on them
Seattle.
drafting CJ Stroud or something?
Yeah. That. Yeah. I'm looking at my last ranking.
Actually, yeah,
Yeah.
Foss is the highest on Geno. He has him at wide QB 17. So like it all
Okay.
tracks. Like he's just
Yeah.
it seems like really high on that whole Seahawks passing game. But yeah,
Mhm.
did you have any receivers that you found difficult to rank?
Um.
Is
Let's
any other
see.
receivers? We've have talked a lot about a few of them already.
Yeah.
It's funny. You
I'm
are the
looking.
highest on DJ Moore. That is interesting. You're the only one who has him.
Yeah.
Well, I guess a couple people have him at 20, but you have him at 19.
Yeah. I think that's me believing in Fields taking that step forward. Maybe not to be the QB1, but to be a productive passer. An
His
above average
consensus
quarterback.
actually is 19. I found that funny, even though you're the
Yeah.
only one who has him at 19. Everyone has him lower, but I guess
I know that is kind of weird. It's pretty funny.
no one has him below 26. So it's for that range.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a lot narrower.
Yeah. I think honestly, that whole range kind of like I'd say 18 to maybe 24, 25. It was like really hard to balance those guys out. Especially, I'll say Chris Godwin was a tough one to rank because I think he's supremely talented. I think he's an amazing wide receiver. I think he's in probably the worst situation he could be in for wide receiver this year. But he's still young and still productive, and hopefully we'll get a better quarterback in Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask in the future. But it was tough to kind of weigh that of like, even if he's bad this year, is, you know, maybe not bad, but if he's, you know, if he takes a step back this year just because of the passing offense taking a step back, you know, will he be able to bounce back in future years? And I believe that he will, but I think that was one that was really hard to kind of, feels like it could go in complete opposite directions depending in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think I'm the highest on Godwin actually, and yeah, it feels like he kicks off that tier that just goes super deep, maybe to wide receiver 40. So yeah, answering Jamie's question here, Jaden Reed or Romeo Dubs. So consensus ranking on Reed actually is wide receiver 50. I've got him at 49. You have him at 55. Romeo Dubs, his consensus ranking is 79, and I've got him at 66, which is actually the highest, but he's as low as 124. Josh Walker's ranking. That seems excessively low, but anyway,
Yeah,
our consensus.
A little harsh.
I think everyone has Reed ahead of Dubs, though.
Yeah.
I don't think, no one has Dubs. We're all like, those of us who seem like ranking him appropriately, it's in the 60s, but yeah, everyone's got Reed between 47 and 55. Actually, you are the lowest technically, but it's a close range there. But yeah, it seems like right now the going for two consensus is Reed ahead of Dubs. And
yeah, I think I had him a couple spots higher. What'd you say? Sorry.
I was going to ask you, does draft capital like severely impact that? The fact that Reed is a second round pick versus Dubs 4th round, even though he has NFL experience under his belt.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think I'm just going to value, unless Dubs was really productive, showed a lot, you know, last year. You know, I think he would need to be quite productive, which he was not, you know, for me to rank him above their new second round pick. Because I think, you know, I don't know the age difference between those two guys, but I imagine Reed's at least a year younger, probably. And, you know, you've got the youth side of things. Like you said, the draft capital, they've invested more in.
They're actually the same age. They're both 23.
Okay. Well, there you go. So
they're both April 2000. So they're like 2 weeks apart. Dubs is looks like 2 weeks older than Jaden Reed. So
okay. Yeah, and I think it's just like Dobbs didn't show a lot. I like Dobbs. I was believing in him, but I think he got open a decent bit, you know. But I'm gonna side with the newer draft pick in that case when when Dobbs hasn't been super productive and didn't get that high draft capital. I think if he was a second round pick or a first round pick, then obviously Dobbs did not get the so that's why I've Reed higher at this point.
This is the Dynasty Gambit, Jamie. Sorry. So all of our rankings are, again, we don't have the redraft rankings yet on going for two. I haven't started mine. I was kind of hoping to do the projections first and then rank from there. I've got my touchdown projections. And interesting enough, though, with the touchdown projections, I think I have Romeo Dubs with more touchdowns than Jaden Reed. So from a redraft perspective, I could get the argument of picking Dubs, just knowing how much of a struggle it is for rookie wide receivers. I would think, especially with Jordan Love at quarterback as opposed to Aaron Rodgers. So I think if I were to go from a 1 year perspective, I think I would take Dubs ahead of Reed, thinking that the kid, like, you know, he's already gone through a rookie season. Like he's can use that experience and maybe be more of an immediate impact. But I think the long-term viability of Jaden Reed is maybe even the potential wide receiver 1 on that team, even ahead of Christian Watson. I know all of us have Watson pretty high in the consensus rankings.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Watson. He's been one all off season. I've kind of been struggling, you know, with what to do with, just in my own head of like where his value's at. You know, his numbers look really good season long. I get a little concerned. I get a little concerned with him just because I think his numbers are a little inflated by touchdowns. And normally, like, if a guy scores a lot of touchdowns, it's obviously great. But the way he did it, it was in a very small sample, and the rest of the season he was not, nearly as productive. And so I think that may have inflated his numbers some. And so it's been hard for me to kind of it's been hard for me to kind of gauge where to put him, both in redraft and in dynasty. Like in best ball drafts, he's been going like wide receiver 20, something around that range, something like that, like around DJ Moore. I can't remember who else. Jerry Jeudy, Michael Pittman, kind of that range. Um, and I've really struggled to take him there because I'm not as confident in his talent as I am some of those other guys. But I'd love to hear your perspective as a Packers fan, how you feel about him.
Well, I think the touchdowns would be easier to. I mean, I have him projected for 7 touchdowns, which does kind of feel like be tougher to hit that. But I also have everyone else like super low. Like Dubs is second on the team in receiving touchdowns with 4.
Yeah.
So, like, I could see where like the difficulty of projecting the touchdowns is he's not having Aaron Rodgers throw. It's Jordan Love. Like how many touchdowns is Jordan Love going to be able to throw? So
Yeah,
I only have Jordan Reed or Jaden Reed with 2 touchdowns. So if I were to like adjust that, I'd probably just bring them closer together. Maybe say Christian Watson at 6 touchdowns, Jaden Reed maybe 3, 4, closer to what Dubs has. So there might be some adjustments there. I guess the reason he's being projected so high is just targets. We expect Watson to be the main target. Now he was able to score a touchdown last year with Jordan Love, so he's shown that capacity, and I think that at least gives confidence that like all of Romeo Dub's good games, I think all of them were with Aaron Rodgers. Like I don't think the games where Jordan Love came in, he didn't really do much. But it was, and I mean Dubs got hurt as well, but only I think just barely over 420 yards. So not really much of a smoke show there, despite what the number might say. But like Watson, it does seem like the skill set to be an alpha is there, so we can kind of project that he's going to be the alpha, lead the team in targets. Maybe Aaron Jones just leads the team in targets. That is a very real possibility. I mean, he's been 1 or 2 on the team in catches for like 4 years in a row. So I would expect that's probably going to continue.
Yeah.
Just because there's not a real true volume, like at least up to this point, a guy who's shown he can be that volume target hog, which does leave the fact that maybe Jaden Reed does. Maybe Jaden Reed walks in from day one and he's the alpha. Like that is a possibility. So to Jamie's credit, like from a redraft perspective, maybe Dubs is kind of like a safe floor just because we've seen him produce in the NFL. But if you really want that upside game changer, maybe Reed is the better chance. So maybe I am wrong, Jamie.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be tough to project with Jordan Love, and I think that's been my biggest hang up, particularly in doing best ball. For just this season, it's been like, how much do I really trust Jordan Love? Do I trust him to make Christian Watson a top 20 wide receiver? I don't know, and so that's kind of been my hang up with it. If Jordan Love's good, then Watson probably will be as well. I think their values are going to be a little maybe intertwined. I mean, of course they will be, but if Love is good, Watson probably will be. Like you said, he's likely going to lead the team in targets, and so that makes a lot of sense to me. Why some people are quite a bit higher on him.
So I guess were there any tight ends that you had a difficulty finding ways or a tight fit for them in the rankings, so to speak?
Yeah. Let's look. I felt like from Kincaid, who did I have? From Kittle on, like 7 and beyond, it was really hard to figure those guys out. I feel like a lot of those guys could have gone above the guy that I have ahead of them, and vice versa. And it's just like a lot of, honestly, ambiguity. I feel like with these tight ends, and like I feel like they're so hard to predict, and it's been a difficulty trying to. I think the rookie tight ends especially have been hard to figure out because there's been so many. This draft class is such a big tight end class, and I feel like we have a lot more. We're considering a lot more rookie tight ends than we normally do in a typical year, and so I think that aspect has definitely been tough for me. So trying to like not overvalue the rookies outside of Kincaid for me but not undervalue them either. It's kind of been tricky to figure out where they fit in. So.
Oh, I've got no problem undervaluing Michael Mayer. He's our consensus 14, and I've got him at tight end 22. So I've got absolutely zero issue with that. I'll just like the consensus rankings go through here because I think what you said, Micah, it's not just a dynasty thing. This is fantasy football tight ends. Like this is what the landscape looks like after the top 7, whatever your threshold of difference maker is. It's wide open. Tight end 8 and tight end 25 aren't very different.
Yeah.
So how can you get one as cheap as possible? Like from a trade perspective, that's a great position to tier down at, which is kind of my thinking. And I mean, I've got Isaiah Likely at tight end 30, so that maybe that's a little further than that threshold, but that was kind of back the idea of the tier down from Freiermuth to Likely.
Yeah, that's kind of been my philosophy for a long time on tight ends. Like even in just like redraft leagues, like if I can't get one of those, obviously it depends on the year and who, what tight ends are there, but if I'm not getting one of those top 3, top 4 tight ends, I think there's such a big drop off from those guys typically that I might as well just punt on the position, work the waiver wire in a redraft league, in best ball, maybe just take 3, late round tight ends and hope they can each find a good week. One of them can find a good week each week. Just kind of like, if I can't get one of the top guys, I'm not that interested in the middle tier guys.
That's where we overspend too often.
Yeah.
And I think there's formats to do it in, right? Like, okay, start 2 tight ends or a 2 tight end premium. Okay. I think that's okay to go after them because you might be playing those guys in the flex spots. But I think in a conventional PPR league, you're probably never flexing them. So having 2 or 3 in the top 20, but none of them in the top 7 is probably really overspending at the position. Whereas if you can have 3, outside the top 30, you have invested so little and just, okay, can I try and play the touchdowns? I know like the other side I work for, Full Press Coverage, I do something called the goal line guide every week. And I try to project and predict where touchdowns will come from on a weekly basis or who's going to score the most and how are they going to do it? They're going to be rushing touchdowns, receiving touchdowns, and just kind of trying those teams, I think, with the higher receiving scores, those are the tight ends I want to target when I don't have an obvious starter. So BG here talking about how do you say? Because I say Schoonmaker. I'm also bilingual Canadian, so like that seems normal to me.
Yeah, I mean the N is there, so I think it's Schoonmaker. I mean that's how I say it.
All right, we're going with Schoonmaker. But yeah, he doesn't have a comment.
He was a tough one to rank, I think, because I think it's really unclear who's going to be, him or Jake Ferguson, who's going to take that top tight end spot. But I think I had him a little bit higher than Ferguson, just, the youth factor. But I think the opportunity is there for Schoonmaker. If I know a lot of people talk him up, and so if he's as good as people are saying he might be, then, the opportunity is there to be, to be really good. There's not a ton of target competition relative to some other teams.
Testing metrics were pretty impressive for Schoonmaker. I've got him at tight end 21, and I am the highest at going for 2. But one thing I forgot to do was read through the consensus rankings for these rookie tight ends. So as a group, we have Dalton Kincaid at tight end 8. You have him as the highest at 6, but everyone has him in the top 12. So we're automatically just putting Kincaid as that top 12 guy. The talent, the offense, it seems the first round capital seems like a perfect storm. So that's the guy we're all. If we're going to overvalue rookie tight end, may as well go for the best one, right? Michael Mayer's consensus is 14, as high as 11 by Jeff, as low as 22 by me. You actually have him at 14 exactly. So way to match. Sam Laporta's our consensus 17. You also have at 17 as well. You matched the consensus perfectly.
Promise I was not looking at the rankings when I set them where they were.
Hey, no, that's the way it goes, right? I mean, to be fair, your ranking is feeding into that aggregate too, right? So
right, exactly. It always
Luke Musgrave, our consensus 22, as high as 16, as low as 32. That's a big gap right there. I am the one that's lowest at 32. I don't think there's any reason to think
Packers fan.
Well, I don't think there's any reason to think he's better than Kraft. Like I've got him one spot ahead of Kraft, but like they're essentially coming in both blank slates, both as rookies. It seems like Kraft's almost more pro ready. So to me, I think Musgrave's been one of the biggest reaches in rookie drafts this year. Like that's the one where like I'd much rather take Schoonmaker clearly
Yeah.
by my ranking. Like I've got him 12 spots ahead as a tight end ranking. Now our consensus on Shoemaker is 28. So clearly looks like I'm the only one who has it ranked that way. I mean, you're only 2 spots difference, but yeah, it seems like
Mhm.
everyone else, yeah, literally everyone else other than me has Musgrave ahead of Shoemaker, and I've been opposed to that the whole time. I'd much rather have a tight end tied to Dak Prescott than tied to Jordan Love. I think
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's ambiguous. Like Ferguson's there, Peyton Hendershot. Like there's like any of these guys could emerge between Shoemaker, like all 5 of them really. The 3 Dallas tight ends, the 2 Packers tight end. I want to throw in Josiah DeGuara, even though he's more of a fullback than anything. But yeah, to me, I think Musgrave's going too early. Like I really don't see much of a difference between him and Kraft, and that's not even so much startups. I think even in rookie drafts, we've seen that difference exaggerated. Kraft's at
Yeah.
33, so like even our consensus ranking 11 spot difference to me seems
Yeah.
rather high.
Yeah. And his hype I haven't really understood because it wasn't like they just took Musgrave, and they didn't have another tight end really competing, and so Musgrave was obviously gonna, get the tight end snaps, but they drafted Tucker Kraft along with them, and so like that just makes it when they're both coming in like that, it makes me less excited for both of them, honestly, because like you said, it's Kraft could easily come in and like at their ADP, like at the rankings we have them, I'd rather take Kraft because you're still kind of buying into that ambiguity, but you're doing it at a much lower cost at that point. And so yeah, the Musgrave hype I haven't fully understood either, and I just think maybe I don't know, maybe you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I feel like we're too confident in Jordan Love. Like I think a lot of people have kind of
Not me.
decide. Yeah, I think a lot of people are they just kind
Go
of
Pack, go.
decided he is the that he is a good quarterback or he will be a good quarterback, and we've seen him play one game. So like I think it's way too early to tell, and I think people are a bit too confident on how good the passing game is going to be in Green Bay.
Just this, don't forget Hayden Hurst was a first round pick, Mark Andrews was a third round pick, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Like, and I think that's the argument, right? Is Musgrave's a second rounder, Kraft's a third rounder. We've made this delineation between the two, even though I don't think
Hmm.
it's still day 2 capital. I don't
Yeah.
really think there's much of a difference.
Yeah, and I
Both
think
had
typically
both
with
really good athletic testing metrics. I think they were both in the top
mm,
5 of this rookie class. So
okay, Hurst and Andrews or Musgrave and Kraft.
Musgrave and Kraft.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think Andrews and Hurst quite had the same athletic metrics as some of the elite tight ends.
Hmm.
Andrews just a great route runner and great at catching, and like he
Yeah.
does it with in spite of being an elite athlete. Like you look at Kittle and Pitts and
Hmm.
Hawkinson, like a lot of the guys, even Kincaid, a lot of the guys we have in the top are all these kind of elite athletes. Andrews isn't, but
Yeah.
we've seen him produce so much and just generate targets that it doesn't matter. Like he's not a bad athlete, but he's more kind of average for the elite NFL tight ends anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
And to the credit, like you were saying earlier, like how much cheaper you can acquire Kraft relative to Musgrave. I think Shoemaker's the same thing. Like I would never draft Musgrave in the second round if I can get Shoemaker off waivers in a 5-round rookie draft. Like what's going
There
on?
you go.
Like Jamie, I almost think you messed up. Not just why didn't you just draft Shoemaker? Why would you even let him get to waivers at that point? Like just trade into the 5th round and take him. Hey, it worked out though. Great play. Jamie know your league, right? That's all.
Yeah,
Key.
absolutely.
But
I was
I guess go ahead.
yeah, well, one tight end I'm certainly higher on compared to consensus is Irv Smith. Love to hear your thoughts on him. I know he's had those injuries and they've just kind of plagued his career at this point, but I think he's going to be the tight end one in Cincinnati, and I think there's not many better offenses you could end up in. And I think Smith is good. He's just been, he's been plagued by injuries, and so I think he's been getting overlooked a bit. I feel like he's starting to get a little more steam kind of as the offseason goes on. But if I can get a tight end in one of the best passing offenses with, Joe Burrow, if I can get a starting tight end for really cheap, then I'm really, going after him. And so Irv Smith's been someone I've been really high on this offseason.
In my touchdown projections, I've got Burrow with the second most passing touchdowns in the league. I think at
Wow.
38. So
Awesome.
you want tight ends in those types of offenses.
Yeah.
So to your credit, like
Yep.
you've got him at tight end 18. So does Josh Walker actually. So a couple of you do, and it's wide range, as low as 37. Brian Ford. So it's funny that the Saturday night co-hosts are so opposed on
Very
Irv
good.
Smith.
Yeah.
Our consensus is 27. I've got him at 26 actually, so I'm kind of right in the middle.
Hmm.
But yeah, that idea of just to at that point invest in the good offenses, I suppose. Maybe
Yeah.
26 is too low because he's not a rookie. Like we've seen him, his season long production isn't ever great, but if his per game production looks a lot better, obviously because of all
Yeah.
the injuries and the lack of playing time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
going to a new offense, that's always tricky, but it's, I would imagine, certainly an upgrade going from going from Cousins to Burrow.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, huge upgrade, and really hoping he can stay healthy.
And to be fair, like this was the spot we wanted all the tight ends to go. Like it's the one spot where Kincaid could have gone, where he might even raise his value relative to Buffalo. Like if he was
Yeah.
so it, like, and they didn't draft a single tight end. So
Yeah.
it seems like it's clearly Irv Smith's room. I don't think Drew Sample is really going to do much there. Devin
Yeah.
Asiasi, I think, is also still on the team. Like I don't have much faith in them. Like I'd rather
Nope.
invest in Irv Smith. So to your point, that's
Yeah.
a good point.
Definitely.
So were there any back to the first question of general ranking philosophies that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get a chance to get to?
I think when it comes to ranking our running backs, I tend to value running backs who are more involved in the passing game. I tend to value them a bit more. Obviously, for PPR and even half PPR, I still value them more than running backs who aren't catching the ball often. Standard not as much, obviously, but I don't play a lot of standard anyways.
It's not really the standard anymore.
I know it's funny how it's changed. But yeah, and so like I'm looking for guys like I think I'm quite a bit higher on Jahmyr Gibbs, and I still
You're
might
the
be too
highest, yeah.
high, honestly.
You're the
Yeah.
only one who has him in the
Um,
top 10. Yeah.
yeah, and that's one I don't have a ton of confidence in that ranking, but
Well,
he's
because we're projecting it, right? We assume he's
right.
going to catch passes. And does that
Yeah.
also like why you have Travis Etienne at 6, right? Because even though
Yeah.
we didn't really see much last year, it's projection forward. He's tied to Lawrence that he will now in
Yeah.
his
And
second NFL season because he missed his rookie season with injury. Like he'll
he
evolve into a pass catcher now.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, and he showed, some receiving upside. A guy I've kind of been targeting some, and I recently made probably to a lot of people controversial trade. Maybe this speaks to my ageism and my ranking philosophies. I traded away Saquon Barkley and Rondale Moore for Quentin Johnson and Rashad White. And I'm coming off winning a championship. And so a lot of people don't agree with that move. For me, it's about I'm trying to get off of Saquon Barkley before that train derails. That's how I'm looking at a lot of running backs. And so I was looking just to get younger at the running back position, get someone earlier in his career who, in my opinion, will probably have a few more years. I mean, Rashad White could flame out, of course, but he caught 50 passes last year. And, of course, a big part of that is playing with Brady and then that high passing volume offense. And that's certainly going to take a step back. But with that, he's kind of stepping into Leonard Fournette's workload. There's not really anyone else there. I know Sean Tucker, I think, went there undrafted, but outside of that, there's no one really competing with him for touches. And so even though the passing volume in the offense is going to go down, I think his receptions are going to kind of maybe stay steady or maybe even go up a little bit. I don't really see them going down as likely. And alongside that, getting the,
he turns good as a risky. Did my AirPods switch out? They might have.
I think your audio just changed there. All good.
One sec. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. And but yeah, I'm hoping Rashad White turns out. It's a big risk giving up Saquon Barkley, but it's kind
of my philosophy on things. And the big thing in that trade was getting Quentin Johnson for me. And
yeah,
I really love him with Herbert. But getting Rashad White, who I think is going to be a usable running back for me next year is key for that.
The upgrade from Rondale Moore to Quentin Johnston. I mean, we haven't seen Johnston yet, so we don't know. But in theory, that should make up the gap between Rachaad White and Barkley. I know both of us have him inside the top 20 of the running back position. The going for two consensus is 23, but
he's a bit of a controversial one for sure. I think
it's funny because he's only in our consensus rankings like at 3 spots lower than Sanders, but just like his rookie season does seem quite a lot like Sanders. Even Devin Singletary, like a lot of receptions right off the bat as a rookie. So that's a good sign.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. Yeah, that's a big ranking philosophy for me when comparing running backs a lot. That's why besides the age, that's why I'm a bit lower on Derrick Henry. Maybe it has more to do with the age, but like players like that are kind of ones I'm tending to steer away from. That's why I have Breece Hall over Jonathan Taylor. I think Breece Hall is a more effective pass catcher. Taylor might be a better runner potentially, but I'm kind of betting on that receiving upside, and that was kind of how I differentiated between those two guys, which may be controversial for some people, but I know Taylor's your running back one, which I don't think is, I don't, super disagree with. I think Taylor's right up there. I think he's clearly in that top 3, kind of that. I think that's that kind of tier, sort of with the quarterbacks. I think Taylor's right in there. So.
To your point, Anthony Richardson's coming there probably isn't unlocking Jonathan Taylor in a new level as a pass catcher.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we've also, it wasn't a monster season like we've seen necessarily from McCaffrey. It wasn't like a 30-point per game season, but we've also seen Taylor be the RB1 without that pass catching upside. So if anyone can do it, like he'd be you've got him at 3 still. Like you can't rank him any lower than that. Just thinking.
Yeah. I mean, that upside's always there for him. He's a great player, and he showed it, 2 years ago. And I think he's definitely going to improve from last year. I think he slumped a little bit last year, but I don't think that was representative of his talent. Maybe just more of the offense and the way, coaching changes, things like that. There's a lot going on in Indianapolis last year. So
I do expect,
I love that.
From an offensive line standpoint, the line didn't seem to perform up to what their normal standard has been. I expect Anthony Richardson's main impact on this team is going to be just improving the run game. I don't think it's going to be an elevator for the pass catching game, but I think that elevation might be enough for Taylor to regain status as the RB1. So the debate's at the top. Like I mentioned, not a single position is completely consensus across the board in terms of number 1 player at the position. Consensus number 1s are Mahomes, Bijan, Jefferson, and Andrews, but they're not unanimous in their going for 2 rankings.
Yeah.
It's funny. For the first 3, one person has them at 2, whereas with Andrews, you're the only one. Everyone but you has them at 2. So
I think that's of the craziness of tight ends, just kind of all over the place.
And Jamie mentioning Evan Hull, of course, most rostered rookie. I think it's his most rostered player overall, even more than Roshan, strangely. But this was a great rankings episode. We've done 2 in a row of these rankings, and at first I thought, okay, let's no pressure need to go over an hour, and we're approaching the 1:45 for both. So both you and Chu really gave us something to chew on. Matthew Russell and Micah Peters back-to-back episodes of the Gambit talking Dynasty rankings. So appreciate it, Micah.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Kyle. I had a blast.
Now your Twitter handle is @MicahPeters_. We'll stick to the name. It's like Micah Parsons and Jason Peters all in one. So
there you go.
Somehow it's not an NFC East team though.
I know. Yeah, but I'm hoping. I haven't gotten an article up in a little bit, but I'm hoping this holiday weekend to hopefully get 1 or 2 up on the site. I just started my new job, so I've been kind of preoccupied with that. It's kind of put my writing on hold, but I'm going to be continuously updating my rankings, through the rest of the off season and beyond. And I'm excited to do redraft rankings and to write some more articles and look out for those on Going for Two.
Saying great show tonight, and that you did awesome in your first show. And again, he watches a ton of content, so he's a good critic for this. The Cleveland connoisseur.
I appreciate it.
Well, but also thank you, Micah, for joining. I appreciate the fact that we got to give you the opportunity. That was not the best way to make that sentence. I also appreciate the fact that you said yes and wanted to come on. So glad to have a guest.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It was a blast. I really loved it. I'd love to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. I know we've already, I think most of the guests we've had on, we kind of cycled through. So once you come on the Gambit, it's, we call the Dynasty Gambit. We also don't like to take risks. Okay, we see that you work with us and it worked well, so we'll stick to it. I guess that's kind of how NFL teams approach coaching.
True. Yeah, very true.
So we can approach it on our podcast too.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Great show.
Speaking of return guests, I know I've already talked to Gerson about this, but Gerson will be on the next episode on the 13th. Again, I'm hoping to have both my co-hosts back, but if it's just me and G, I think Gerson's also one of the rankers. Maybe we do a rankings part 3. I know he's got some specific topics that he really wants to talk about. Maybe we'll dive in some rankings on the next time. But I appreciate everyone who came and watched us live. Jamie, Gator, BG, Zach, B-League, a lot of letters, all the Peters family and extended family. We had 3 different members: Paul, Maggie. Thought I saw someone else. John as well.
Yep.
So, imagine if Jason Peters was watching. That'd be great too. But I appreciate everyone who watches or listens on audio after the fact. Yeah, this is great. Thank you again, Micah.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle.
And of course, you can follow us, as I mentioned, in 2 weeks from now. I'll be tweeting things out at Senra Says, so just pay attention to that. But yes, Gerson will be on in a couple weeks. And until then, this was another episode of the Dynasty Gambit. Bye for now.